Hello and welcome to another installment of Crafting with the Desmond-Fish Public Library. My name is Beth and today I'm going to show you how to make a simple mechanical drawing. Also gets called a kinetic sculpture, or a fancy word is an automata or automaton. And it's a little drawing with moving parts. The first one I need is a dragon, but you can make whatever you want fly. So the drawing is on top, and it's got a little device in there. I hold it up there. So I'm going to show you how to do all the little parts. I have a bigger one here to make things a little easier to see. It's also just fun to make it fly. And we need some very simple materials to make this. Just some cardboard, some cardstock for your drawing, some pliers, you're going to be really useful for bending the wire, and 3 paper clips. So I am going to take you through making one this size, but it's pretty easy to scale up, and it's easier for your first time, if you feel a little intimidated, to make a big one, because you have more room to work in here. But it is the same mechanism. You've got 1 paper clip stretched out to support the drawing. We have another that moves up and down to push and pull the wings. And then we have the third stretches across here and has a little divot so that it can raise and lower the wings, and then a little crank to turn it. You're also going to want to have a hot glue gun, something like an X-Acto knife, some things to draw with. Scissors are helpful, a ruler. It's very helpful to have some spare glue on hand for your glue gun, and to make sure it is glue that actually fits in your glue gun. Problem I had a couple weeks ago. So to start, we're going to make a little box. Now this one I made, the 2 sides are 1.5 inches by 1.5, and the top is 2 by 1.5. So to start, I am going to measure those out and cut out my pieces. I've got the 4 pieces that I need to make my box, which is my base and my support. And now on 3 of them, I need to find where the center is and make a hole there. So I have one of my favorite things, which is my center finding ruler, which means it's really easy to find the middle of something and you don't have to do any math, which I always appreciate. So if I find the middle of both sides and then draw a line across, where they intersect is the very middle of my piece of cardboard. And I'm doing this so that my wire will go through at the same place on both sides, and the other wire will come down in the middle to meet it nicely, and everything will line up. The more precise you can be with this, the better it will sort of work. So I found my middles. Next, I'm going to poke some holes through them just to get them ready. And for that, I'm going to use one of my paper clips. I'm just going to unbend a bit and push down where my lines cross to get some nice holes. I'm going to set these aside for now, and I'm going to make my drawing. I made a dragon on this one, because I like dragons. But you can make it anything you want that has wings that move up and down. It could be a pig that flies, it could be a bird. The one thing you want to do is have it be symmetrical. And the simplest way to do that is to fold your cardstock in half and draw half of your image. So I'm just gonna sketch, there we go, a quick shape. So if I was doing a dragon, or let's do a bird. It would look something. Give it a wing, give it a tail. Something like that. And then I'll cut it out. So I did one earlier, which I cut out, and I drew on it a little bit to make it more interesting. So it's just not just white. And the next thing I'm going to want to do is fold down the wings. And I've drawn on these as well. So you want to fold the wings down where they meet the body. So in this one, I would fold my wings down there. I would try to make this line, my fold line, parallel to the bottom, and I would make sure that I folded both wings down the same. So now I have my drawing. I made this loon-ish looking bird. And it is what I'm going to have fly. So I've got my drawing, got my cardboard bits. Now I need to work on my wire pieces. So for the first one, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to make the wire, which is this one on here, that holds and supports my drawing. So you're going to want to straighten one of your paper clips. Into this shape. So I made all of it straight, and then the last little bit I left up. And I leave this bit, because this is the bit that's going to get glued inside of my bird, so that my bird stays exactly where I want it. And I like to attach it somewhere around the middle. This one, I attached it more towards the back. This one, I attached it at the middle and bent the wire forward, and I think I like this one better. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to take my bird, and I'm going to poke a hole through right here. Poke a hole through, and then move my bird so that this part sits right down in the crease. So my bird will be like that. And now I'm going to put some glue in here to keep it that way. I'm also going to trim a bit of this wire off because it's sticking out at the back. Most needle nose pliers will have a wire cutter part on them. trimmed it. And I'm going to go ahead and put glue down all of this because I want the whole thing to stick together nicely. So now I have my bird attached to its support wire. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on my box. Now, I'm only going to build half of my box. So I'm going to get my bottom. I'm going to decide where my sides. One thing to pay attention to, and just make sure you do the same on both sides, is whether you attach this piece on the side there or this piece under there. Because we want our edges to come to the same height. Now I'm going to slip this piece in here just so I can see at what height this should go to help sort of set the glue on this side. But I'm not going to attach this side. I need it off so that I can stick my wires in easily. Bring it to my board. So there's the start of my box. And my bird's on here. So the other two wire things I need to make are my sort of crank here and the piece of wire that moves the wings up and down. The piece that moves the wings up and down is going to need to have two bits. I'm just going to work on straightening it. Get it as straight as you can. And I'm going to make a tiny loop at the top, and that's going to help with me having something to glue these cardboard bits to. So I'm going to bend it around, and then I'm going to squish it flat. And now I have a little loop that will make it easier to have something to glue these onto. My next wire is going to be the crank that goes through. And now this works best if it sticks out one side more than the other. So you have one side for turning. It doesn't stick out too far on that side. And it also works best if this little dip is in the middle. So if you decide, you can use your box to measure this, the part that you're going to be working with, and you can just put little dots on it to mark it. What I want to do now is carefully measure around and find the middle of this part so that my little dip is in the middle as well. I'm going to use my ruler, and you can measure it out, or if you have a center finding ruler, you can use that. And I want the little dip to be really quite small. You can see the dip in there. And I want it to be kind of a square shape. So I'm going to measure, I think I'm going to make it 1/4 inch. So I'm going to measure off and mark this at little intervals. It's hard to see, but I've made, I'm not sure, there we go, you can kind of see. I've made 4 little dots in there, and that's going to guide me where I'm going to bend my wire. So I have the mark lined up with the edge of my plier, and then I'm just going to bend it to be at a right angle. I'm going to go down to my next mark. I'm going to bend it back to be parallel with this. I'm going to keep doing that, and I'll show you the shape that I end up with. So this is the shape that I want it to be. And I want to do my best to get these to be right angles, and for this and this to be at the same height. Another thing to think about when you're bending the wire is also that all of this lines up nicely this way. So sometimes you might have to clamp it down to keep it and bend it this way and that way so that it all stays nicely aligned. Now this is what is going to push my other wire up and then pull it down to make the wings lift up and down. So I'm getting my wires ready. The next thing I need are these little cardboard supports to push and pull the wings. To do those, I cut some strips of cardboard. But if I cut it thin enough, it sort of cuts where the corrugated part is, and it's all going to come apart. But that's okay. I'm actually going to want to flatten this. And then I'm going to use my glue gun to really firmly attach all 3 of these layers to each other. That way I will have 3 layers of the paper and the glue in there, helping me make this nice and strong. And as always, do your best not to burn yourself on the hot glue. Having longer nails can be really helpful for this. So you can press down with your nail, and if any glue gets on it, your nail doesn't feel the heat. So now I have my stronger support. I'm going to cut it. You can see it's quite a bit wider than these ones. So I'm going to trim it till it's at a width I like. that looks like a good one to me, and I'm going to make 2 of these. So now I've got my 2 wing supports. I've also trimmed off the end of this paper clip because I don't need it to be as tall as it is. It's what's going to go in that top center hole there. It'll probably get trimmed more as time goes on. I am going to try and move my loop so it's a little more directly over the rest of my wire. There we go. And now I'm going to glue these on either side of my loop. Trying my best to get this to be nice and perpendicular with that. So I don't want to glue it on like that, I want to glue it on like that. If I spread them apart, you can see I now have the device for moving the wings up and down. Now the bit that's missing is this piece of cardboard that is glued to the end of the wire and threaded through the loop. Now the important thing about this is that you have to make it so that at its lowest point, it does not touch the bottom. At its highest point, it does not touch the top. So I'm just going to want a little square of cardboard. And I'm going to put a hole through the center of it using my paper clip. Gonna press with it until I can get a hole through. There we go. See, or you can sort of see my hole. I'm getting all my pieces together. The next thing I'm going to want to do is just sort of roughly see where I want to attach my bird. So the wing part is going to go in the middle hole there. And I'm going to want it to attach nicely to the wings. I don't want to do it right up close, or there isn't enough of an angle for it to really work well. I want to sort of be in the middle area of the wings. So I'm just going to take a rough look. Sometimes it's easier to work upside down and see where that is. And I'm going to want to bend this wire, so instead of going straight down, it goes out a little and then down, because I want to attach it a little bit in front of this one so it doesn't get in the way of my crank. So my wire is going to end up looking a little bit like that. Now to figure out where it's going to go in here in a way that will still keep this nicely above center, I'm going to poke it before I attach the wings. That way I'm sure the wing rod comes up through the middle. So I'm going to just poke it. In line with that hole, and I still have my line from when I was finding my centers. Down. Now is when I can start deciding how high up I want this to be and trimming this to make a difference. If I want it this high, if I want it this high. So I think that's a nice place. Bend that wire a little straighter, because I want this wire to go through and attach at the bottom. So this will support the bird nicely, as you can see on this one. On this one, I attached the wire closer to the back and just had it go straight down. This one is bigger, so the wire wouldn't reach to the bottom, so I just made another little L-shaped edge at the top and attached it down here. This one is long enough that I can run it all the way through and attach it to the bottom. And to make it nice and sturdy, I'm actually going to poke a hole. Now is also when I'm going to pay attention to, is my bird looking like it's doing a nosedive? Is it looking like it's going to fly up into the sky? And I'm going to press down until I've made a little hole that I can glue this into. Now that I've fiddled around with my wire to get it so the bird will be where I want it, I'm going to attach it. I'm going to put a little bead of hot glue right at the hole I made. And then I'm going to set the wire down into it. Now this is a nice time to sort of slip this back in so I can make sure that my box will be square when I'm done. And before the glue finishes drying, I'm going to want to sort of move this about until I get it standing up nice and straight. And once I have it where I want it, I'm going to hold it until the glue sets. Once my glue is set and my bird is there, now I can figure out where to trim this and glue on the little cardboard square so that it interacts nicely with this. So I want the square to sort of intersect where this is. I want to trim this a little bit above where that will be. And now I think it's time I attach these to the wings. So now that I have where I want my wire to be in there, I can see my supports are a little long, so I'm going to trim them about 1/4 inch off before I attach them to my wings. And to attach them to my wings, I'm going to fold down the top. I want to fold down the same amount on each side. And then these will get attached to my wings. And I want it so that when they're at the low position, they are down a little. And when they're at the up position, they're up a ways. push them, I think, that far up, because I think that will have a nice amount of pull when it comes down. So I'm going to put glue on either side. I'm just putting a dot at the very end where this is. Doing my best not to burn myself. And I can sort of trim off all of the uglier glue bits when I'm done. Now, if I push my wings out to sort of help this, if I move this up and down, my wings move up and down. I like to put on my little square so that the wire can slip a little ways into the corrugated area, so it's a nice bit to hold on to, but that the wire does not go too far down, the glue does not go too far down that it interferes with this. Because in order for this to work, I need my cardboard to be able to move freely on this. So I'm slipping it in. And then I'm going to put it at the lowest because I think it'll be easier to attach there. It is a slightly finicky process. It is easier to do if you do it bigger. So I sort of recommend maybe making a bigger one first before you go and make a smaller one. I think the smaller ones look cooler, but when you're learning, it can be really nice to do a bigger one first. And then you know what you're doing when you move on to doing the smaller one. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue at the top of my little square here. I'm going to move quickly before it dries. And I'm going to slot my bird wire in it. And at this point, I can still adjust it. So I can see it's a little too high because I'm at my lowest point and the wings are way up. And if I move it around to my highest point, the wings are higher up than they go. So I'm going to take it off and I'm going to adjust it. So now that I have got my cardboard glued on the end of this and this fed through, I can put on my final side. To do that, I am going to thread this wire through the hole and move my box, this end in, until it's where I want it on the box. As you can see, it's a little wonky, but that's okay. I think I'm going to glue it there and then trim that. Now to make it so you can actually turn it, I'm going to bend this wire up. I'm going to hold it in here to support it. I'm going to make myself a handle. So then now there's something I can use to turn, and now my bird flies. Now, ideally, I would have left a little more wire on this side. I can see I'm a little close there, but that can be fixed. The main thing is to have fun doing it. It's one of those things that involves a lot of tinkering, a lot of working, a lot of re-gluing. It can be a little frustrating at first, but it is very rewarding once you get it. It's one of those things where the components are simple. It's getting it all lined up right that takes some work, but I tell you, it is worth it, and opens up a whole new thing to do with any of your drawings to make them move. Here's my dragon, and here's my poor wonky loon. It has not quite enough wire. Oh, there we go. There's the moving. You can see it's going to take some tinkering for me to get him flying all the way. And that's it for this week. Thank you for watching. Good luck making your own little mechanical drawings. And if you do make them, please share them with us so we can take a look too. Thank you. Have a nice day.